The storm came in quietly, like it didn't want to be noticed. Snow erased the streets, the city thinned out, and New York began to feel hollow. Then the power died. No lights, no phones, no witnesses, just darkness and whatever was already moving inside it. At 10 p.m., an ambulance answered a call that shouldn't have mattered. By morning, someone would be hunted, and someone would not make it home. 10 p.m. The radio crackled to life in ambulance. 723, cutting through the steady hum of the heater. Paramedic. Sarah Chen reached for it without looking up from her coffee, her fifth of the shift. Possible cardiac event. Mayo, 62, 1743, Riverside Avenue, apartment 4B. Her partner, Marcus Webb, was already turning the wheel before dispatch finished. They'd been together 3 years, long enough that words were optional. Sarah grabbed the jump bag while Marcus hit the lights, and the ambulance lurched forward into the thickening snow. The storm had started that morning as a whisper, delicate flakes that melted on impact. By evening, it had become something else entirely. Horiaceations and asks. The forecast called it the worst December storm in 2 decades, and for once the weather service wasn't exaggerating. The streets were nearly empty except for a few taxis crawling home, and the occasional brave soul hurrying between storefronts. Sarah watched the city transform through the window. She had grown up in Queens, knew every corner of this place. But tonight it looked foreign. The snow made everything softer, quieter, like the city was holding its breath. "How many calls we got left?" Marcus asked. Sarah checked the roster. 3 more hours. If we're lucky, maybe 2 calls. Everyone's staying inside. Smart people. They turned onto Riverside Avenue and immediately understood why the call had come in. The street was completely buried. Cars transformed into white lumps along the curb. The buildings rose like dark monuments against the falling snow. Most windows black, only a few glowing with warm light. 1743 was a 6-story walk-up, the kind that had been old when Sarah's grandmother was young. What is his out? No elevator. Marcus parked as close as he could, but they still had to wade through knee-deep snow to reach the entrance. The lobby was dim, lit by a single bulb that flickered occasionally. Mailboxes lined one wall, most of them dented or hanging open. The radiator in the corner clanked and hissed, but produced no heat. Sarah could see her breath. 4B, she said, heading for the stairs. They climbed in silence, their boots echoing in the stairwell. The building smelled like old cooking oil and mildew, and something else underneath that Sarah couldn't quite place. Something metallic. 11 p.m. The door to apartment 4B was already open. Just a crack, but enough. Sarah exchanged a glance with Marcus, then knocked loudly. EMS. We got a call about a cardiac event. No answer. Marcus pushed the door wider and they stepped inside, calling out again. The apartment was small, just 2 rooms visible from the entrance. A kitchenette to the left, a living room straight ahead. 1 lamp on a side table provided the only light. The man was sitting in an armchair facing the door, hands gripping the armrests. He was the right age. 62 or close to it, with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He wore a white undershirt and dark pants, no shoes. He was breathing heavily, but he wasn't clutching his chest or showing obvious signs of distress. "Sir, I'm Sarah. This is Marcus. We got a call about chest pain." The man looked at them for a long moment. His eyes moved from Sarah to Marcus and back again. Then he nodded slowly. "Yes, yes," I called. "My chest." It was tight. I couldn't breathe. Sarah moved closer, setting down her bag. "When did it start?" "An hour ago. Maybe more." She began her assessment, checking his pulse, his blood pressure, listening to his heart. Everything seemed stable. Not normal exactly, but not critical. Marcus moved through the apartment, checking the other rooms as protocol required. Make sure there were no other victims, no other dangers. Your vitals look okay, Sarah said. But we should take you in, get you checked out properly. Better safe than sorry. Especially tonight. The man's grip on the armrest tightened. No, sir. I can't leave. Not yet. Sarah frowned. If you're having cardiac symptoms. I'm not. The man's voice dropped. I mean, I was, but that's not why I called. Marcus returned from the bedroom, caught Sarah's eye, and shook his head slightly. Nothing. Then why did you call us? Sarah asked carefully. No. The man stood up suddenly, moved to the window, and pulled back the curtain. Sarah could see his hand shaking. Because I needed someone here. Someone official. Someone who might keep them from doing anything. Who? Before he could answer, the lights went out. Complete darkness. Sarah's hand went immediately to her flashlight, clicking it on. The beam cut through the black, illuminating the man's face. He looked terrified. It's starting, he whispered. Marcus tried his radio. Dispatch. This is 723. We've lost power at our location. Requesting status update. Static. He tried again. Nothing. Sarah pulled out her cell phone. No signal. She looked at Marcus. You? He checked. Dead. The man moved away from the window quickly, pressing himself against the wall. They're out there. They've been out there since I called you. I thought if you were here, they wouldn't. Sir, you need to tell us what's going on, Sarah said firmly. Who's out there? Midnight. His name was Robert Salazar, and he told them everything in a rush, the words tumbling out like he'd been holding them back for too long. He was a building superintendent, had been for 15 years. He knew every tenant, every leak, every broken step. He knew which apartments were occupied and which ones weren't. Which ones were supposed to be empty, but weren't. 3 months ago, he'd noticed activity in the basement. Voices late at night. Trucks coming and going at odd hours. He'd gone down to investigate once and found the door to the storage area padlocked with a new lock he didn't recognize. When he'd asked the building owner about it, he'd been told to mind his own business. Then 2 weeks ago, he'd seen them. 4 men carrying boxes up from the basement, loading them into a van. He'd been taking out the trash, hidden behind the dumpster. The boxes were unmarked but heavy, and the men handled them carefully. One of the boxes had split open, and Robert had seen what was inside. Guns. Not handguns, military-grade weapons. He'd kept quiet, terrified. But tonight he'd heard them downstairs again. More activity than usual. And he'd realized that with the storm, with the empty streets, this might be the night they moved everything. The night they disappeared. So he'd called 911, claimed chest pain, hoped that an ambulance presence might delay them, might give him time to figure out what to do. Sarah listened to all of this with growing concern. Robert, if what you're saying is true, you should have called the police, not EMS. I tried. They said they'd send someone when they could. That was 2 hours ago. No one came. The storm, Marcus said. They're stretched thin. Or they're paid off, Robert said quietly. The building owner has connections. Real connections. The kind that make cops look the other way. Sarah moved to the window carefully, staying to the side. She lifted the curtain just enough to peer down at the street. At first she saw nothing but snow and darkness. Then her eyes adjusted. Wait. There, a van parked across the street, and 2 figures standing beside it, barely visible through the falling snow. Watching the building, she let the curtain fall. Marcus. He came over, looked for himself. His jaw tightened. Okay. New plan. We call for backup on the ambulance radio. Dead, remember? Lara said. Then we get to the ambulance. Use the radio there. Get cops here, real cops. Enough that it doesn't matter who's paid off. Robert shook his head frantically. You can't. If you go outside, they'll stop you. They know you're here. They've been waiting. Waiting for what? For the power to come back. Once it does, once there's light and phones and witnesses again, they'll leave. But right now we're invisible. We could disappear and no one would know until morning. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. Marcus, we need to try. He nodded. Stay with him. Lock the door behind me. I'll be 5 minutes. 1 a.m. Marcus was gone 10 minutes. When he came back, his face was grim. Sarah opened the door at his knock and he stumbled inside, snow covering his jacket. The ambulance is blocked in. They put something behind the tires. I couldn't see what. And there are both exits now. Front and back. 4 of them at least. Did they see you? Yeah. One of them told me to get back inside. Said the storm was too dangerous to be out. Sarah's mind raced. Okay. We wait for daylight. Once the sun comes up, once there are people on the street. Robert was pacing now, his breathing ragged. You don't understand. They're not going to wait for daylight. They're going to come up here. Why would they do that? Because I'm the only witness. The only one who knows what's in the basement. Once they move it, they need to make sure I can't talk. And now we're witnesses too, Marcus said quietly. The words hung in the air. Sarah felt her heart rate increase. She forced herself to think clearly. We need options. Ways out besides the front and back. Fire escape, Robert said. Outside my bedroom window. But it goes down to the alley. That's where 2 of them are. Windows in other apartments? Marcus shook his head. We'd have to break in. Make noise. Alert them. Sarah walked to the door, tested the lock. It was old, but solid. Then how do we defend this position? With what? Marcus gestured at their equipment. We've got medical supplies, not weapons. Robert disappeared into his bedroom and returned with a metal baseball bat. This is all I have. Sarah looked at Marcus.
Yeah.
In 3 years, they've been in dangerous situations before. Domestic violence calls, overdoses in bad neighborhoods. But this was different. This was deliberate. Calculated. Her phone buzzed suddenly, making her jump. She pulled it out. 1 bar signal, flickering. A text message coming through, letter by letter. Dispatch. Multiple reports of blackout. Crews working on restoration. ETA. Unknown. She typed back quickly. Need police at our location. Emergency situation. But the signal died before it sent. She tried again. Nothing. 2 a.m. They spent the next hour fortifying the apartment. Marcus dragged the heavy dresser from the bedroom and wedged it against the door. Sarah inventoried their supplies, looking for anything that could be useful. Scissors, a scalpel, alcohol wipes that could burn if necessary. It wasn't much. Robert sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I got you into this. You needed help, Sarah said. We're here to help. Not like this. Marcus joined them at the table, his voice low. Let's think this through. What do they want? To move the weapons and disappear. What's stopping them? Oh, us. We're witnesses now. But if we saw nothing, if we stayed up here, kept quiet, let them do their business, you think they'd let us go? Sarah asked. Maybe, if we're not a threat. Robert looked up. You don't know these people. I've seen what they do to threats. Then we make ourselves useful instead of threatening, Sarah said slowly. The idea was forming as she spoke. Robert, you said there are weapons in the basement. How many? Dozens, maybe more. And they need to move them tonight, in a storm. That's a big job. Got on. You're saying we helped them? I'm saying we negotiate. We tell them we're just EMTs. We don't care about their business. We'll stay out of the way. Maybe even help load boxes if it gets us out of here safely. Robert stared at her. You'd do that. I'd do a lot of things to keep us alive. Marcus was quiet for a moment. It could work. If they believe we're not a threat. Big if, Sarah said. But what's our alternative? Wait for the power to come back and hope they leave first. A sound from below made them all freeze. Footsteps in the stairwell. Heavy boots. More than one person. They're coming up, Robert whispered. The footsteps stopped outside the apartment. A knock. Polite. Almost friendly. Hey in there. We need to talk. Sarah looked at Marcus. He nodded. She moved to the door but didn't open it. We're medical personnel. We're not involved in whatever's happening here. A pause, then a different voice, older and calmer. We know who you are. We checked your ambulance. Sarah Chen, Marcus Webb. Both clean records. Good people. We don't have a problem with good people. Then, let us leave. Can't do that yet. But here's what we can do. We need another hour, maybe 2. You stay quiet, stay out of our way. And when we're done, you go back to your ambulance and drive away. You never saw us. You were up here treating a patient during a blackout. That's all. And the patient? Sarah asked, looking at Robert. Silence. Then, he comes with us. He's got some questions to answer. Robert's face went white. Marcus moved closer to him, protectively. That's not happening, Marcus called out. He's under our care. Medical transport only. Medical transport only. The voice hardened. Don't make this difficult. We're EMTs, not enforcers, Sarah said firmly. We take our patient to the hospital, or we all stay here. Those are the options. Another pause, the sound of low voices conferring. Then footsteps retreating down the stairs. Marcus exhaled. That bought us time. Not much. 3 a.m. Sarah found the photograph in Robert's bedroom while searching for anything they could use. It was on the nightstand, in a simple frame. A woman, younger than Robert, but with the same eyes. She was laughing, caught mid-motion, full of life. My daughter, Robert said from the doorway. She made Sarah turn. Melissa. She lives in Boston. Has 2 kids I barely get to see. Sarah set the photo down carefully. That's who you're thinking about right now. He nodded. If something happens to me. I never told her about any of this. Didn't want to worry her. But she should know. Someone should know. I didn't just disappear. Nothing's going to happen, Sarah said. But the words felt hollow. Back in the living room, Marcus was at the window again. I count 6 now. 3 in front, 3 in back. They brought more people. Escalation, Sarah said. We refuse to cooperate, so they're preparing for alternatives. We need a new plan. Robert joined them. There's a way. It's risky, but there's a way. They both looked at him. The basement, he continued. There's a tunnel. Old water line from when the building was first constructed. It connects to the building next door. That building has a different entrance, different street. If we could get to the basement. They're in the basement, Marcus said. In the storage area, yes. But the tunnel entrance is in the boiler room. Different section. If we're quiet. That's a lot of ifs, Sarah said. Robert met her eyes. You wanted options. That's the only other one I've got. Marcus looked at Sarah. She could see him calculating odds, running scenarios. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but we need a distraction. Something to pull them away from the stairs. Even for a minute. Ira thought. Then, fire alarm. There's no power. Manual pull stations. Most old buildings have them in the stairwells. If we pull one, without power, it won't notify anyone, Marcus said. No, but it'll make noise. A loud, sustained noise. They'll have to check it out, make sure it's not a real fire that could threaten their operation. Robert was already moving to his closet. pulling out heavy coats and flashlights. It could work. The pull station is between the 3rd and 4th floors. One of us pulls it, runs back up. In the confusion, the other two head down. "We all go down," Sarah said firmly. "We're not splitting up." Then who pulls the alarm? 4 a.m. They move through the dark hallway like ghosts. Robert leading with Sarah and Marcus close behind. Each step was calculated, slow, their breathing controlled. The building was silent except for the wind howling outside and the occasional creak of old wood settling. The pull station was where Robert remembered, a red lever against the peeling wallpaper. Sarah reached for it, then hesitated. "Once we do this, there's no going back." "There's already no going back," Marcus whispered. She pulled the lever. The alarm was deafening in the enclosed space, a harsh mechanical ringing that echoed through the stairwell. Immediately they heard shouts from below. The sound of doors opening. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness. "Go," Sarah hissed. They ran down the stairs, past the 3rd floor, the 2nd. Below them they could hear the men arguing, trying to figure out if it was real or a trick. At the ground floor, Robert veered away from the lobby, pushing through a door marked "Maintenance." The alarm was slightly muffled here, but still loud. The boiler room was massive and dark, filled with ancient pipes and the smell of rust and heating oil. Robert led them through the maze without hesitation, and Sarah realized he must have walked this path 1,000 times. At the back wall, behind a disconnected water heater, there was a small opening. More of a crawl space than a tunnel. "There," Robert said. "It's tight but passable. Comes out in the next building's basement. From there, we can reach the street." Marcus went first, his broad shoulders barely fitting. Then Sarah. The space was claustrophobic, the walls pressing in on both sides. She could hear her own breathing, too loud, too fast. Behind her, Robert was crawling, his flashlight providing the only illumination. The tunnel seemed endless. Sarah's knees ached from the rough concrete. Her hands were scraped and cold. Just when she thought she couldn't go any farther, Marcus called back softly. "I see the exit." They emerged into another basement, this one cleaner and better lit. Emergency lighting strips along the ceiling provided a dim glow. Marcus helped Sarah up, then Robert. They stood for a moment, catching their breath. That's when they heard it. Voices from the tunnel behind them. "They followed us," Robert said, his voice breaking. "The stairs," Marcus said, spotting them across the room. "Move." They ran. Behind them, flashlights appeared in the tunnel opening. "Ouch." Sarah hit the stairs first, taking them 2 at a time. Marcus was right behind her. And Robert, she heard him fall. A cry of pain. Turned to see him sprawled on the concrete, clutching his ankle. Marcus was already going bad for him, hauling him up, practically carrying him toward the stairs. The first man emerged from the tunnel. He was young, maybe 25, and he had a gun. Up. They didn't stop. Marcus got Robert to the stairs and they started climbing. The man fired. The sound was impossibly loud in the enclosed space, and Sarah felt the bullet pass close enough to hear it. She screamed but kept moving. At the top of the stairs was a door, locked. Sarah pulled at it desperately while Marcus held Robert upright. This one hit the wall beside them, sending chips of plaster flying. Sarah threw her weight against the door, and it burst open, old lock giving way. They tumbled into a lobby. Much nicer than Robert's building. Marble floors, a directory on the wall, and most importantly, large glass doors looking out onto a street, a different street. 5 a.m. The snow had stopped falling. The sky was beginning to lighten in the east, that deep blue that comes just before dawn. Sarah could see the shapes of cars and storefronts becoming distinct again, the world coming back into focus. They burst through the doors onto the sidewalk. The cold hit like a physical force. But Sarah had never been more grateful for anything. Behind them, more shouts. The men were coming through the basement door. "The ambulance," Marcus said. We need to find it. Get to a radio. There, Robert pointed. A payphone on the corner. Old-fashioned. Probably one of the last in the city. Do those even work without power? Era asked. One way to find out. They ran, Robert limping badly between them. Marcus reached the phone first, lifted the receiver. For a horrible moment, nothing happened. Then a dial tone. Beautiful and ordinary and the best sound Sarah had ever heard. He dialed 911, spoke rapidly, gave the address, their names, the situation. Sarah watched the building entrance while he talked. 2 men emerged, spotted them, started walking over. They're coming, she said. Police are on the way, Marcus said, hanging up. 2 minutes. We might not have 2 minutes. The men were closer now. The younger one still had his gun, but he was keeping it hidden, aware that the street was no longer completely empty. A few early morning workers were visible in the distance, potential witnesses. You're making this harder than it needs to be, the older man said. He was 50-ish, with gray hair and a calm demeanor that was somehow more frightening than anger. We're businessmen. We can work this out. By doing what? Sarah demanded. Forgetting we saw you. Forgetting the weapons. You didn't see any weapons. You treated a patient during a blackout. That's all. Robert stepped forward despite his injured ankle. I know what's in that basement. I know what you're moving. And I know who you work for. The man's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. That's unfortunate. The sound of sirens cut through the morning air. Distant, but getting closer. The man glanced toward the sound, then back at them. His hand moved toward his coat. Sarah didn't think. She grabbed Marcus's flashlight and threw it as hard as she could. It hit the man in the shoulder, making him stumble. At the same moment, Robert shouted, drawing the attention of a woman getting into a car across the street. Help! We need help. The younger man swore and grabbed his partner's arm. They need to go. Now. Too many witnesses. The older man hesitated, and Sarah saw the calculation in his face. The risk versus reward. The sirens were louder now, maybe 30 seconds away. Finally, he nodded. This isn't over. They ran back toward the building. Sarah watched them disappear inside, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Marcus had his arm around Robert, holding him steady. The woman from the car was walking toward them, concern on her face. Are you okay? Are you okay? Do you need help? Police are coming, Sarah said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. We're okay. We're going to be okay. 6 a.m. The next hours passed in a blur of police interviews and statements and paramedics checking Robert's ankle. The sun rose properly, turning the snow from blue to white to that brilliant, almost painful brightness that only comes after a storm. The street filled with people and cars and normal life resuming. Sarah sat in the back of a police cruiser with a blanket around her shoulders and a cup of coffee someone had brought her. Through the window, she watched them bring out the boxes from the basement. The officers handled them carefully, and even from a distance she could see the weapons inside, enough to supply a small army. Marcus slid in beside her, his own blanket making him look like he was wearing a cape. He was quiet for a moment. Then, the detective said they'd been tracking this group for months. The building owner, the men we saw, they're part of a bigger network, smuggling weapons up from the south, distributing them through the city. Robert's testimony, combined with what they found today. They'll go away for a long time, Sarah finished. Yeah. He paused. Robert wants to talk to us before they take him to the hospital. They found Robert sitting in another ambulance, his ankle wrapped and elevated. He looked exhausted but relieved. When he saw them, he tried to stand. Don't, Sarah said quickly. You need to stay off that ankle. Mayu, I wanted to thank you. Both of you. I thought I was going to die tonight. We all did, Marcus admitted. But we didn't. That's what matters. Robert reached out and took Sarah's hand. I called for an ambulance because I was scared and didn't know what else to do. I never expected you'd risk your lives. That's the job, Sarah said. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. They'd gone beyond the job tonight. Way beyond. Melissa, Robert said suddenly. My daughter. I need to call her. Tell her I'm okay. Tell her everything. You'll have time, Marcus assured him. Plenty of time now. 7 a.m. The power came back at 6:47. Sarah knew because she was watching a streetlight when it flickered to life. That sudden brightness that made her blink. All around them, lights came on in windows. Signs illuminated. The city waking up properly. Shaking off the darkness. Her phone buzzed with a flood of delayed messages and voicemails. Dispatch checking in. Her mother asking if she was safe. 3 texts from other paramedics comparing storm stories. She responded to the important ones and ignored the rest. Marcus was talking to the police captain, giving a final statement. Sarah watched him gesture as he talked, animated despite the exhaustion. In 3 years, she'd seen him handle countless calls with competence and calm. But tonight had revealed something else. Courage beyond protocol. Loyalty beyond duty. The captain patted Marcus on the shoulder and walked away. Marcus rejoined Sarah, leaning against the ambulance beside her. They're clearing us to leave, he said. Told us to go home. Get some rest. We're off the schedule for the next 48 hours. Mandatory? Strongly suggested. Something about traumatic experiences and mental health protocols. Sarah smiled, despite everything. Very modern of them. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city come alive around them. The snow was already beginning to melt in places where the sun hit directly, revealing patches of wet pavement. In a few days, it would be gone completely. Just a memory. Just another storm. You know what the weird thing is? Marcus said finally. When we first got that call, when we were driving over here, I was hoping for a quiet night. Maybe one more call, something simple, then home. Careful what you wish for. Yeah, he looked at her. You were brave tonight. Really brave. So were you. I'm serious, Sarah. When you threw that flashlight, that was quick thinking. Probably saved us. She shrugged. Instinct. Instinct. Good instinct. She turned to face him properly. Marcus, this job, what we do, most nights it's overdoses and car accidents and chest pain that turns out to be heartburn. But sometimes it's this. He nodded slowly. I know, and I need to know that you're okay with that. With the sometimes. He met her eyes. Are you? She thought about the fear. The adrenaline. The moment in the tunnel when she thought they might not make it out. Then she thought about Robert's face when the police arrived. The relief. The gratitude. The life saved. Not with medicine, but with presence. With refusal to abandon someone who needed help. Yeah, she said. I am. Then so am I. Pete paused. Besides, who else would you throw flashlights with? She laughed, surprised by it. At point 8 a.m. They drove back to the station as the sun climbed higher, turning the city gold. The radio chattered with normal morning traffic. An MVA on the expressway. A possible stroke in Midtown. The machinery of emergency response grinding on as it always did, in different individual stories. Sarah dozed in the passenger seat, her head against the window. In her half-sleep, she dreamed of tunnels and darkness and voices calling her name. She woke with a start as Marcus pulled into the station parking lot. Home, he said softly. They checked in with their supervisor, filed their reports, restock the ambulance for the next crew. The familiar rituals of end of shift. Other paramedics asked about their night and they gave vague answers. Long. Complicated. Tell you later when we're more awake. In the locker room, Sarah changed out of her uniform slowly, her muscles aching. She caught sight of herself in the mirror. Same face as yesterday, same eyes, but something had changed. Some invisible line crossed. Her phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. This is Robert. The police helped me get a phone, but I wanted you to have my number. And to tell you I called Melissa. We talked for an hour. She's coming to visit next week, bringing the kids. I don't know how to thank you for giving me that chance. Sarah saved the number and typed back, no thanks needed. Take care of that ankle and hug those grandkids. His response came quickly. I will, I promise. Outside, Marcus was waiting by his car. He'd changed into jeans and a sweater, his hair still damp from a quick shower. When he saw her, he straightened up. So, he said, want to grab breakfast? I'm thinking pancakes. Lots of pancakes. Sarah walked over to him. The morning sun was warm on her face, and the air smelled like snow and exhaust and possibility. Pancakes sound perfect. They drove through the waking city, past the storefronts opening their gates and the vendors setting up their carts, past people walking dogs and couples holding hands, and delivery trucks making their rounds. The ordinary beauty of a Thursday morning in December. At a diner in Hell's Kitchen, they ordered too much food and ate in comfortable silence. Around them, other customers read newspapers and argued over sports and complained about the weather. No one knew what Sarah and Marcus had been through. No one could see the invisible weight they carried. But across the table, they saw it in each other. Recognition, understanding, the bond of shared experience that needed no words. After breakfast, Marcus drove her home. She lived in a walkup in Queens, similar to Robert's building but smaller. He pulled up to the curb and put the car in park. Get some sleep, he said. Real sleep. You too. She opened the door then stopped. Marcus. Yeah? I'm glad it was you. Well, tonight. I'm glad you were there. His expression softened. Nowhere else I would have been. She went inside and climbed the stairs to her apartment. The normalcy of it was almost shocking. Her furniture in the same places. Her cat meowing for breakfast. The coffee maker she'd forgotten to clean yesterday sitting on the counter. The life she'd left 12 hours ago, waiting patiently for her return. She fed the cat, opened the curtains, looked out at the street below. The snow was melting faster now, running in small rivers toward the gutters. By tomorrow, it would be gone. The city would move on, but Sarah knew she would remember this night for the rest of her life. The darkness and the fear and the impossible choices. The moment when everything could have gone wrong, but somehow, against all odds, went right. Her phone buzzed one more time. Marcus. Sweet dreams, Sarah Chen. She smiled and typed back. You too, Marcus Webb. Then she crawled into bed, still wearing half her clothes, and fell into deep and dreamless sleep. Outside her window, the city continued its endless rhythm. Sirens and car horns and voices blending into the symphony of survival. Somewhere, an ambulance was answering a call. Somewhere someone needed help. But for now, for these precious hours, Sarah was simply a woman sleeping in her own bed, safe and whole and alive. The storm had passed. The darkness had lifted. And tomorrow, when her shift started again, she would be ready. Whatever came next, she would be ready.